Oh, I'm so cold. Freezing. Oh,
Wheels, you all right over there?
I'm cold.
Why are you so cold? It's it's like 72 degrees in the studio.
The studio, but welcome to winter. It's cold outside. It's not even winter yet, technically, but
It's not?
no.
Oh man, I need
Not till December 20th
Really? Oh man.
or 22nd, something like that.
This isn't a meteorology podcast, thank God. Well, why don't we do a show to warm you up
Ooh, I like it. I need to get warm.
about winter and ice and cold and Christmassy type stuff
And blizzards.
and blizzards. Roll the beautiful bean footage.
Welcome to another adventure with Vinyl Ventures.
A vinyl adventure.
A vinyl adventure.
I like it. What are we doing today, John?
We're talking about cold music. Cold, ice, snow, winter, or Christmas music.
And it's kind of a pretend thing from around. We've had a beautiful late fall.
Yeah, we really
around
have.
here. But when it does really start to get cold, those cold songs, those winter songs, and I hate to say it, the Christmas music really starts to warm you up. And we've really never done a themed show about that.
No.
So it's a great idea.
So here we are, laying down the winter season.
And what we want you guys to do to warm yourselves up is to go check out our YouTube channel. We say it all the time. We want you guys to go there. We not only want you to watch the shows, but we have so many other things that we have had help putting together. And when you flip through there, it is almost like Christmas every day because there's so much beautiful artwork and so much of a variety of things that we've done over the last 2.5 years. So go to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, comment, share. Give us show ideas. Anything else?
Comment.
Merch ideas. Maybe we can make some Vinyl Venture scarves for this time of year. Comment. Yeah. The commenting we want you to do both on the shows, the unboxings, and on the shorts. And don't forget to go to the shorts tab on there too, because there's a lot of really cool stuff every week from Vinyl Ventures on the shorts tab. So what brought this idea up for you? I know you're not a Christmas music guy, but
No.
why?
Well, really, because suddenly the weather got really chilly
It did.
very quick.
It did.
And we had our first snow.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Minneapolis, and it's a little chillier up there.
Yeah, and it was a winter wonderland. Because
It was.
You shared some
Indeed.
pictures. But the snow we had here was like a middle of the winter snow. It was slushy and sloppy and heavy and all of those things that you expect from a snowstorm in February, and we got it in November. So why are you not a fan of Christmas music? Just out of curiosity.
I don't hate it. I just don't dig it.
Yeah. Yeah. As a kid, we always listened to Christmas music when I was growing up. So it's not something that we do all the time. But again, there are those days where it's a lot more appropriate than others. And you know what? We have Kenny here.
We still have Kenny.
We have Kenny to warm us by the fire with. What's your first selection that you want to talk about today? First on the list,
a piece that I've talked about a little bit, maybe not on this show. It was an unboxing, I think.
Yeah.
Cake, Showroom of Compassion, and the whole album is a collection of 45s.
Yeah, that's cool.
And there's one, this came out in 2011, and there's one song on this called... if I can read, The Winter. So that kind of ushers in what we're talking about.
Cake is such an interesting band because they kind of exist at their own frequency, right?
Yeah.
They're not a pop band. They're not a rock band. There's elements of ska and reggae. I pronounced it right this time.
Yes, you did.
It's almost like they're anti-pop.
Yeah.
But when you go to record shows, especially, people are always looking for Cake records.
Because there's, until recently, it's been very scarce
Right.
to get the albums.
Right.
This thing is it may still be available, but it's going up in price a bit.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And in the unboxing, this is actually just an outer box.
Yeah, it's
for
just an
this,
outer
right?
box.
It's pretty cool. And they make a lot of this stuff available on their website themselves, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a lot of stuff on their website, and that's a good point, because if you're looking for stuff, go to the band's website and just see what they have available, because they'll have special editions and they have some really good sales sometimes.
Yeah. And especially this time of year,
Yeah.
bands will have limited edition merchandise or winter or Christmas themed merchandise that you can get.
Yeah.
Special pressings of their records that you can't get on Amazon or maybe at your local record store. So that is a good thing to do if you're looking for a gift for someone
Indeed.
this time of year. Well, that's a good one to start with.
Yeah, it was the Cake's 6th studio album, and it was a little departure for them because they use color. They don't usually use much color
Instead of the yellow
Yeah.
background.
And,
but it's still like the clip arty type artwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's still very much in the Cake vein, but
Yeah.
they have color now.
Yeah. No, this is very cool.
And they used piano, and piano is a big element of the song Winter.
Oh, okay.
At first, you're like, wait a minute, is this a Cake song? Because it starts with a piano. So
It's always nice when they can kind of throw you for a loop a little bit.
it was. This was very successful too. It had a great critical reception, and the commercial performance domestically. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200.
Huh.
I mean, for Cake, but I mean, again, it's in a different time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When did it come out again?
In
2011 is what you said.
2011, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a good one, man. I have a few. I've got a Dawes album that's 45s that I got in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 years ago. But I don't. It's funny because 45s are what I grew up with. I mean, when I was first listening to records as a kid and scratching the hell out of my mom's Beatles records, Mr. Russell.
We haven't done that in a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I always listened to 45s, but now, to me, and I know there are 45 aficionados out there, but to me, 45s are the most frustrating and
yeah.
inconvenient
Yes.
way to listen to songs.
I think my distaste of 45s actually went into full swing when I worked at a record store,
Yeah.
because one of my jobs was organizing the 45s.
Oh,
I
no,
hated it.
That's not fun. That is not fun. Well, that's a good one to start with. It's always good to start with Cake and then move your way to the main dish.
Yeah, we'll move to the main dish. We start with a dessert.
Well, I've talked about this before. This is the Zoetrope vinyl edition of the Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. This is the 15th soundtrack album by Danny Elfman. It was released October 12, 1993 by Walt Disney Records to promote the American stop-motion animated musical dark fantasy film The Nightmare Before Christmas. I love this soundtrack. I'm not like a freak about the movie like some people are. Like,
I love the movie.
Maybe my wife is, but a lot of people, as soon as Halloween hits, this is the movie they watch.
Yeah.
And it is such a cool idea, and it is funny and super entertaining.
Yes.
And such an interesting twist on Christmas and Halloween kind of
Yeah.
merging. But this is the Zoetrope vinyl version of this, and I've talked about it before. To the eye, it's not as cool to watch when it's on the turntable. So what you really need to do is take your phone and kind of get a close-up of each of the little moving strips on it. And
As
it
you can-
really, really looks cool.
You can really see the detail and see what's going on.
Yeah, and Michael Young, friend of the show, Michael Young, mentioned this, and I'm like, the next day I was shopping for something, I think at Walmart, and just perused the vinyl section. They had it, and I'm like, well, this is mine. And I don't do that a lot, but if I'm going there, I'm absolutely going to check out the vinyl.
There's an alternative cover of this album that is super hard to find.
Oh, really?
That I would love to have.
Of the Zoetrope version?
No. Of
the original soundtrack.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's A Nightmare Before Christmas, covered by, I don't even know the title of it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you meant a different cover. You mean someone
No. Covers.
Covers album.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
By alternative bands.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Is it a major label or kind of an independent thing?
I don't know. I'll have to research more.
We'll research it and bring it back. I'm not going to take this out, but I love the simplicity of the back cover too. You've got the song titles here, Zero the Dog. It's just very different as far as Christmas, and I thought it was a good way to start. There are kind of two camps of people that love that Christmas music. Well, maybe three. People that love the Christmas music, people that hate it, and people that put up with it.
Yeah, I'm probably a person who puts up with it.
Because if there's someone in your home who does love it, the last thing you want to do is, be a grump and not listen to the Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack. But if you get a chance to check this out, do it. It's really cool. And the sound, this isn't like picture discs. The sound on these is really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still compromised a bit, but it sounds pretty good to my ears. So
Nice.
to my ears and my Ortophone Blue. What's your next selection?
Well, to go against all my inner
Instincts.
instincts, a Frank Sinatra Jolly Christmas.
We were talking before the show. His is one of those voices
Yeah.
that when you hear Christmas music, you pay attention.
I mean, if I'm going for Christmas music, it's going to be like Sinatra, Dean Martin,
Right.
the old singer,
Crooner kind of.
crooners. Yes.
Yeah. I feel the same way, and I may or may not have a crooner Christmas record in the old, what do you call it, quiver.
Nice.
Isn't that what people keep arrows in?
Yeah,
Quiver?
the quiver.
Yeah.
And this came out in 57.
1957.
And it's been reissued many, many, many times.
1957 is 63 years ago, man.
Yeah. It was reissued in 65 with a different cover. This has the original cover. They even retitled it when they reissued it, the Sinatra Christmas Album. But the original title was Jolly Christmas from Frank Sinatra.
Oh, that's great.
And this is, I picked up a bunch of albums that a friend was getting rid of, and lo and behold, this was in the collection.
Well, I mean, almost any time you flip past a Sinatra record, it gets your attention. You know what I mean? I mean, he sold millions and millions of records. There's no doubt. But there's always something that seems special about a Frank Sinatra record.
And this was Frank's first Christmas album.
Really?
Yeah.
In 57?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I kind of caught a shot of this close-up shot, and this looks so good against the Vinyl Ventures backdrop here.
Oh, yeah.
It's very cool.
And it has all the Christmas standards on it.
That's great. And somebody signed it.
Well, I think because a lot of these albums that my buddy had were from a DJ.
Oh,
he had
really?
inherited from a DJ.
No kidding.
So they were straight from the record library at this radio station.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. No, that's a good one, man. I have a couple of Sinatra albums, but I don't think I have his Christmas.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, like when we came up with this idea, I didn't even think about Frank Sinatra, because there's so many ways that you can interpret, and I was looking for ice or cold or winter, stuff like that. But we both approach this differently each time, and that's why it's fun. That's a great one.
Yeah,
you cannot go wrong with the
Jolly
chairman of the board.
Christmas. Jolly Christmas, not just Merry Christmas.
It's
jolly.
Jolly Christmas.
Indeed.
Chairman of the board. I like it.
You're up.
Well, when I think of like the seasons changing and it changing from fall to winter, I always think of Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds, which is actually a Pete Seeger song. But the Byrds really made it popular. And this is a staple song. We've talked about it before. Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival, Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds. These are the songs that are always in those 60s era like movies or TV shows. And I always think of this song. I've never really been a huge fan of the Byrds, but it's such a great song, and it really captures the spirit of that time of year when it's getting cooler and you're saying goodbye to summer and everything that you did over that time. And this is the Byrds' greatest hits. You got Mr. Tambourine Man, I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better, All I Really Want to Do, 8 Miles High, Mr. Spaceman. They are a lot like the Doors because nobody else sounds like them.
No.
It's that 12-string guitar, that really chimey 12-string guitar that you hear, and then the harmonies. It sets them apart from everybody else that was making records at the time. And David Crosby, of course, went on to Crosby, Stills and Nash, and I always see him and think that he looks like Nigel from Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Especially in this picture. The song Turn, 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 they're the lyrics are taken almost verbatim from Ecclesiastes in the Bible. And that's another funny thing. It's a rock and pop song that's basically stealing lyrics from the Bible, which is cool too. In 1999, Seeger arranged for 45% of the songwriting royalties for Turn, Turn, Turn to be donated to the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions. He kept 50% of the royalties for his own music and took a further 5% for the lyrics because, in Seeger's own words, in addition to the music, I did write 6 words and one more word repeated 3 times. His handwritten lyrics to this song were among documents donated to the New York University in 2007. So it's notable for being one of the few instances in popular music in which a large portion of the Bible is set to music, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
It really is.
There's a song by the Melodians and Bodie M's Rivers of the Babylon, Sister Janet Mead's The Lord's Prayer, U2's 40, Sinead O'Connor's Psalm 33, and Cliff Richard's The Millennium Prayer. So, if we did a show on the Bible, we wouldn't have many popular songs to choose from.
No.
I love the Byrd. I love some of the Byrds catalog. I really like what the guys from the Byrds did after the Byrds.
But that's a good one if you're going to dip your toe into the Byrds, the hits.
Oh, yeah. We've done a greatest hits show. We should probably do another one because
there are a lot of them.
Yeah, and especially for people who are just beginning to kind of listen to vinyl. It's such a great way and such a convenient way to listen to music because there's nothing convenient about vinyl and the amount of room it takes to store them. Getting up, changing records, especially the 45s.
Yeah.
Like, I love 45 presses of albums because they just sound so much better. But listening to 45s, not my favorite thing.
No.
But birds, turn, turn, turn. Thank you, Pete Seeger.
That's a good one because the weather is turning.
It is. And we're turning our attention to your next selection, which is...
And because I was in Minneapolis,
I flipped past this today, dude.
The Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me, and the reason, and this came out in 87, and the sole reason I brought this album, so I'm in Minneapolis, and I'm wandering around the Skyway.
Yeah.
Because it gets pretty chilly in Minneapolis, and they have this these skyways where you don't have to go outside,
Right.
and it's like a maze
Yeah.
wandering through the city.
Like from hotels to shopping malls.
Yeah.
Kind of like Indy has, too. Indy,
Yeah,
We don't
Indy-
call it the Skyway, but...
Yeah. And so the Skyway, it's, I mean, it gets super cold in Minneapolis. It wasn't terribly chilly when I was up there, but they're not unused to having below 0 days
Yeah.
for a long time.
And the funny thing is, when we were in Minneapolis 2 years ago, it was
Hotter than Hades.
hotter than Hades. So the Skyway came in handy then, too.
Yeah.
What's on here?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff on here, but the Skyway is, Paul Westerberg is singing about in the song, he's so cold and even wearing a stupid hat and gloves.
It sounds like you singing a song.
Yeah.
Wintertime.
It's a very, the Replacements are known as this hell-raising drunken band, and it's a very sweet song.
Yeah.
It's kind of an homage to their hometown of Minneapolis, talking about the Skyway, because the Skyway is well known in Minneapolis.
Yeah. That is crazy that I literally flipped by this morning, and I'm like, well, they're from Minneapolis and it's cold as hell, but I forgot about the Skyway
Yeah.
on here. These guys are great, man. They're so underrated.
They really are.
Skyway is the second to last song on the
Yeah.
side.
And this is probably my favorite Replacements album.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Even more than Let It Be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just love this album.
1987, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I love the song Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That was I believe that was one of the singles from this album. Yeah. The Ledge, Alex Chilton, and Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. Well, we could do an entire show on Minneapolis.
Yeah,
bands.
we really could.
I mean, it's kind of funny how many bands are from, Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is the Jayhawks, of course.
Well, you have Jayhawks, Prince, Dylan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yes. Robert Zimmerman is originally from Minneapolis.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
They're a bunch.
Put that on the show
to do
list.
show topics.
That's a good one, man. I like it.
The Replacements.
Well,
Skyway.
Even if it's a little bit on the nose, the song Snowblind was one of the first ones that popped up into my head. And I'm just going to read this because this is like the first thing that popped up when I was looking into this. This is Black Sabbath Volume 4, by the way. And it's a recent repop of it. And man, it sounds so good. Their music needed a little bit of help because I don't feel like it maybe was recorded the best. But these repops of their catalog, especially the Rhino hi-fi.
The Rhino stuff is really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. And they've gone back to like original packaging, and it really looks great. Anyway, Snowblind was one of the first songs that I thought of. And of course, it's the band's most obvious reference to cocaine, their drug of choice during this period. It was also the album's working title, but Vertigo record executives were reluctant to release an album with such an obvious drug reference. So there's another song, Snowblind, by Ace Frehley that I thought of. But, we've given Kiss and Ace and the guys a lot of love recently. So
Yeah.
I figured I'd move on to another obvious drug reference from another big band. Sabbath is such an interesting band when you think about it, because they've had so many lives. They had the Ozzy era, and then Ronnie James Dio comes in, and then they have like 6 other singers, and then Tony Iommi is doing a solo album called I think it's the Seventh Star, and the record company makes him release it as a Black Sabbath album. So, and then they reunite with Ozzy in the late 90s, and and then they do their final tour 8-9 years ago. They've just had many, many lives, and they're kind of lucky when you think about it, to have worked with somebody like Ozzy and to be able to function with somebody as crazy as Ozzy. So Black Sabbath, they are a survivor band for sure.
Yeah,
and we don't talk about them a lot.
No, and that's a good point. The repops of some of these 60s, 70s artists are
superior.
Yeah. I mean, I know people like original pressings, but I think, as you mentioned, some of them, especially Sabbath, some of their early pressings were just not great.
Yeah. And especially when you get into the 70s and 80s, when, there was a lot of fuel crises in the 70s. So obviously records are
much thinner.
Part petroleum.
Yeah.
They're trying to minimize the amount of vinyl and things that they put into it. I mean, some of these records, when I was growing up, you could like completely bend into a curve, because they're certainly not 180 gram.
No.
And it's funny too, because 180 gram is like the de facto number, and they are nice and thick. But I've even seen recently, 140 and 150 gram like thicknesses called out on hype stickers, and I'm like, are we doing this?
Yeah.
Is it that special that you have to say, oh, there's 140 gram vinyl, because we're too damn cheap to make 180?
Well, and I think I read somewhere that 140 grams is the perfect size.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, we should really kind of get into that geeky side of collecting. You've talked about doing either a short or a whole show just about those details, in case there are people out there that are kind of dipping their feet into the sickness that is vinyl collecting.
We probably need somebody who knows a lot about it, like Michael Young, on the show.
Yeah, we could have him back.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, we wouldn't even have to be here. Just give him a microphone and let him talk.
Go, Mike.
But Black Sabbath Volume 4, Snowblind, give it a listen, man. It really sounds good. On the WIA side, Warner, Elektra, Atlantic, Rhino covers all of the back catalog of that record company. And they do such a good job, man. I mean, they take pride in the packaging and the quality of what they put out.
Which is kind of funny, coming from a label that was originally doing these goofy gag records.
Yeah.
To pivot into being one of the top reissuers.
Yeah, that's a great point. We should really, I have a couple old Rhino releases. I brought one in. It's the Turtles' Greatest Hits was on Rhino, but that's not even the goofy.
No, the goofy
record
stuff was just like off the wall.
Yeah, like Dr. Demento type stuff, like novelty records.
Novelty records, yeah.
All right, man. Black Sabbath, Volume 4.
All right.
What's your next winter? Oh, gosh. What a good one.
The Stones, Emotional Rescue. She's So Cold is one of the first records I was thinking of when we came up with this idea.
Yeah, I love it. And the reason that I always think about that song is because there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer's singing it. So I always, when I think about that song, which is a great Stones song.
Oh, yeah.
But I always think of Homer Simpson singing it.
And Emotional Rescue came out in 1980.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's kind of thought of as the
disco album.
As the disco album. I really, really like Emotional Rescue.
I do too. It's so different.
Yeah.
It's like disco was so hated, and was 1980 after they did where they got all the disco records and like burned them. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
That was a
yeah.
big thing. You know, so much hatred was built up for disco music. But then you have bands like the Stones and Kiss, like mainstream pop rock bands that are doing disco type stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and even everybody got in on the act. I mean, even the Dead with Shakedown Street.
Oh man, speaking of Rhino, they did Rhino did a reissue of Shakedown Street, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Dead album.
I do too.
And you know, I like disco anyway, and funk and stuff like that. Always have for whatever reason. But man, it is kind of crazy how many really, really popular bands kind of got into that.
Yeah, they're like, well, we got to. That was maybe the start of bands. Hey, we got to get on this gravy train.
Right, right. But emotional. I love the song "Emotional Rescue." This whole album is so good and so
It really
interesting.
is.
And I love like the X-ray artwork on it too.
And the single peaked in the U.S. at number 26. So that's reasonable.
Yeah. There's also a song on here called Summer Romance. So they had She's So Cold and Summer Romance. They're capturing the cross section.
Yeah, they're going from summer to winter.
Yeah. See? You didn't even plan
Nice.
that. By the way, I love the scarf. It looks great. It matches your shirt. It matches the set.
Well, I'm cold.
You
so-
are a little bit chilly. The Stones are one of those bands that has such a vast catalog anymore because you know they keep putting albums out. You know, Hackney Diamonds came out in what 22.
It's really amazing that they're. Why are they still putting out music? They're 80.
I know, and I've read and heard different things. They at the heart of all of this, most of these bands, at least classic rock and pop band, they're artists.
Yeah.
I mean, they are artists, and their art is music. There are those bands that can survive on just going out every summer and playing hits, and that's what they do because some of them take the attitude that there's always, and it's because of the time of day that we do the show, but there's always beeping at some point in one of our shows. And
Sure.
I stop, like anybody listening is going to be bothered by it. No, it's just part of the Vinyl Ventures
Yeah,
experience.
it's beeping.
But what was I saying? Oh, there are the bands that take the attitude that it's not going to get played, so we're not going to write new music. It's not going to get sold. And we're making $0 from streaming anything. And then there's the other side of it, the bands that are kind of taking that artist attitude. It's what we do. It's what we became known for. And as long as we're a band, we're going to put new music out.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah.
Because-
especially for a band who's been around for
70 years almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do appreciate that they've remained relevant through all of these. I mean, they've recorded music in 7 decades now,
yeah.
which is absolutely incredible.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for the Stones. I mean, if you would have told me in 1980 when this came out that they'd still be making new music and touring in 2024, I would have thought you were absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah. And it was, to keep everything so weird, they started recording this in the Bahamas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then they moved all around Paris. This is when the Stones were a super band.
Yeah.
So I think they finished overdubbing in New York.
That's interesting. It would be interesting to do a show on where the biggest albums ever were recorded. I think that maybe we do that.
Yeah.
Like get the 10 best-selling records and talk about the locations where they were recorded.
Yeah, because that's always, why would you go to the Bahamas unless maybe they just wanted to get away from everybody.
Because you're rich and it's easy
Yeah.
to get drugs there.
Yes, indeed.
I'm guessing. That's a good
The
one. Man.
Stones, She's So Cold.
Well, this one is going to be a bit wacky. It's the Beatles' Abbey Road. And it's probably when I was a kid and I was scratching the hell out of my mom's Beatles records, I always gravitated toward the second side of Abbey Road. I don't know exactly why. I think it might be because it's more almost schizophrenic sounding and sort of medley kind of sounding than most of their other stuff. I mean, we're also talking about when I was younger, I thought that the White Album was like the weirdest thing that had ever been recorded. And now it's like one of my favorite Beatles albums to listen to. But anyway, the song that I always think of when I'm thinking of cold, wintry type things is Here Comes the Sun, because of the line, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. And I love it. I mean, I think of going to London the 2 times that I've been there, and the weather in the middle of like spring and summer, and the weather has always been terrible. And so when I think of these dudes being in London during winter, I'm like, they really mean it, because I can imagine that the London winters are especially cold and isolating. But obviously, Abbey Road is just one of those.
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, it is another very, it is another very strange kind of fragmented album that somehow works on every level, right? And I don't know if there's any of their stuff that doesn't. I mean, like I've said before, I think the Beatles somehow are in all of our DNA. And you're going to have those outliers that say they hate the Beatles or they're overrated or whatever. And that'll just go in my one ear and out the other. But yeah, I always think of Here Comes the Sun as a hopeful song, as,
During the winter,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So when you get that first taste of cold and ice and snow, listen to Here Comes the Sun, because that'll give you that hope. Of course, it'll give you that hopeful,
That nice warm
feeling. Yeah. I mean, George Harrison really came into his own, and I think I could be wrong about this, and I know that Keith is within earshot, but Here Comes the Sun isn't the most covered Beatles song, but it's way up there. I think Eleanor Rigby has been covered a lot.
I'm sure Hey Jude's been covered a bunch.
Hey Jude, definitely. But that's just the mark of a great rock pop band,
Indeed.
And
yeah.
and when this came out, in 1970, the 60s, bands would cover songs, multiple. I mean, a song would be released and you'd hear different artists cover it within months, So,
yeah.
I mean, that's partially that speaks to how good the song is, but it also speaks to how cutthroat the business was. If Otis Redding recorded a song, you can be sure that Pat Boone's probably going to record the white bread version of it.
Yeah.
But Here Comes the Sun, folks, and this is the anniversary edition of this that just came out a couple years ago.
That's a good one. We got to have hope.
Yes.
Amongst all the cold, snow, and blizzard.
Hope and positivity and...
Well, let's have some hope with Springsteen, Born to Run, and the song on here. This came out in 75, and the song on here, 10th Avenue Freeze Out. There were 2 singles from this album, Born to Run, of course, which everybody knows,
Yeah.
and 10th Avenue Freeze Out. And it's funny because even Springsteen's not even sure what the song is completely about. But it's...
Of course he's not. It was the 70s.
I mean, the general consensus is that the song's about the formation of the band. But as far as 10th Avenue Freeze Out, that reference, I don't know.
I don't either, but I love this. Of Springsteen's records, this is absolutely my favorite. Not just because of the music, just the iconic cover with Bruce on the front leaning on Clarence Clemens.
This is probably my favorite Springsteen.
Yeah, and did you get this?
Yeah,
you get this at the Antique Mall in Noblesville?
Yeah.
Oh man, you've
we were together back when we could get vinyl pretty cheap.
Ish.
Yeah, well, it was only $10 or $12.
It was probably 10 years ago at least, right? Isn't that crazy? All the records that I've bought since then, and I remember when you bought this one.
Oh, yeah, I remember it well, too.
No, and this is a good one. This is a really good press of this, too.
Yeah, and it's funny that the protagonist of 10th Avenue Freeze Out is Bad Scooter, which is BS, Bruce Springsteen's initials.
Oh, okay.
And in the third verse, Big Man Joined the Band refers to Clarence Clemens.
Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of the formation of the E Street Band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really sat down and listened. I just love that song.
Yeah, I do too.
When I hear 10th Avenue Freeze Out, it's the horn section that plays such a big role in the chorus. And I think that's what grabs me and pulls me in.
Yeah, there's so much. It's not, well, I guess it is with Clemens in the band. There's a lot of horn, but it's almost a very Chicago-like song.
It is, for sure. And Clarence's nephew is who's playing with them now.
Oh.
Since Clarence passed away.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
They've kind of kept it in the family.
Literally.
Yeah, but I love the song Born to Run. Is Thunder Road on this too? No. Backstreets, Jungle Land, Meeting Across the River, She's the One. Oh, yes. Thunder Road opens this album. And, I just hit my mic with the record. Thunder Road opens this album. And that is absolutely my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. And he did a version, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago with Melissa Etheridge. And it is absolutely fantastic. But this whole album, there's something magic with this album.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's maybe not his greatest collections of hits, but there's some phenomenal songs on here. Yeah. This is Springsteen being Springsteen.
Yeah. Being the most Springsteen that he possibly can. That's a good one, man.
So 10th Avenue Freeze Out, what's next for you?
Well, this is not anything but an album title. And the reason I'm going with Cinderella's Long Cold Winter next is because this is Cinderella's second album. And it was released in July of 1988 on Mercury Records. They had their first album, Night Songs, with Shake Me and Nobody's Fool, and they just blew up. I think that was 1986 that it came out. They were opening for bands like Bon Jovi and David Lee Roth, and they became a huge band from Philadelphia. Their second album, this album, I remember before it came out, I would read Metal Edge magazine like it was the Bible. And there was a section in it that told you when the new releases were coming out. And this was at a time when new releases were Tuesday. On Tuesdays when the new albums came out. So I went to the Greenwood Park Mall. I would have been 13 because I heard that Cinderella's next album was coming out that day. And I went up to the guy working there. I would work at that store eventually, but I went up to the guy working there, and he's like, "Oh, we haven't gotten our shipment yet, so come back." So I had to go kill time at the Greenwood Park Mall, and came back and got it on cassette.
Of course,
Long Cold Winter is Cinderella's second album, and it is named after that line from Here Comes the Sun. Long, Cold, Lonely Winter.
Nice.
That's where they got the name for the album.
That's a good tie-in.
Yeah. So I've always loved the cover. It's just their purple logo with the plain white on it. And then you have them here out in the woods.
In the snow.
But this album, they got lumped in as like glam metal or hair metal or whatever you want to call it. But they do have a lot of hair. they have a lot of hair, and they had a lot of hits for no more albums than they did. But the first single off this was Gypsy Road. The big one is Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone, The Last Mile, and Coming Home. So they had 4 singles off of this record. And I absolutely love Tom Kiefer is the singer and guitarist and the guy that writes all the music. He's like a musical genius. But I've always loved this record. This is my MOV press of it. And, they don't tour anymore, but Tom Kiefer tours with a band, and, he's fantastic. I saw him with LA Guns and Faster Pussycat in Fort Wayne a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Long Cold Winter, Cinderella.
Nice. That's
What's
a
your
good
next one?
Well, it's the winter, so let's stay in New Jersey with a band called Winter Hours.
Nice.
And this is
She looks like she's chilly.
yeah, she is chilly. And well, I'll tell you about the painting in a second. But they're an alternative rock band from New Jersey, and this came out in '83.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I have never heard of them.
They didn't have a lot of releases, and you're not going to find much about this band. It's just one of those bands that was part of the '80s alternative scene that didn't get a lot of pub.
Yeah. So like once REM blew up,
Yeah,
a bunch of the record companies do what they always do. Put more albums out by alternative bands. How did you hear about them?
they were probably more than likely they were on a collection.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've talked about it a lot. Sometimes those they aren't as popular today as they used to be, right?
Collections? No.
Yeah.
Which is, I think soundtracks have kind of taken over but soundtracks don't have weird and unusual stuff on them.
Right. But collections used to be put out by record labels, usually similar types of bands, just a single off of each of their new releases. And it was a really good way for the record company to keep people buying their product, but also get them hooked on other bands that otherwise they may not have listened to. And obviously it worked for you because you bought the record.
Yeah, this came out in '85. The
85.
band was active starting in '83, but
okay.
'85 is when this came out. And it's a jangly mid-'80s college rock band.
Okay.
That sums it up 100%.
Yeah.
But the painting is actually they give you a little. It's on loan. It's amazing. I've never heard of this really happening much, but the front cover painting by Paul Shabazz is on loan from the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's kind of cool that they, put that on there. But it's called September Girl, which for the band, the Winter Hours.
Yeah. That's really great. It's a really pretty painting.
Yeah.
Very cool. You don't hear of that a lot. I mean,
No.
unless it's obviously an old painting.
Right.
But yeah, you don't hear of that a lot. The credit being a museum.
Yeah, and they've got the reproduction of the original painting right there, and I've seen that painting.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. I like it.
Yeah.
Here and then you have the pictures of the dudes on the back.
Yeah. This was an EP. That was another thing record companies did a lot of in the
80s.
In the 80s,
Yeah.
EPs.
Yeah,
It was a
EPs.
good way to sample a band for, the albums were usually
$6.
$5-6.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Most people don't even listen to records as albums anymore, let alone EPs. I always thought it was funny that the longer that a full-length album is called an LP, which means long play.
Yeah.
EP means extended play. To me, EP
Should be the long
is
one.
the longer one.
Yeah.
Nobody asked me, but it still confuses me.
Welcome to life.
Yeah, welcome to collecting records because nothing makes sense. Everything's on the table. Winter hours, wait till the morning. That's a good one, man.
And they were from the Northeast, while all the South was where all this new music was popping up.
Yeah. Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, man.
So that could have been one of the reasons they kind of got left out in the cold.
Hey,
But bing.
he is bringing it all back. Well, if you're going to think of a thrash song for winter and cold and ice, why not do Trapped Under Ice by thrash metal legends Metallica? This is interesting. So Trapped Under Ice is on Ride the Lightning. It's the first song on the second side of Ride the Lightning. It was first performed live November 17th, 1984. And according to this, most recently performed live by Metallica, November 26, 2022, Hollywood, Florida. It's the fifth track on Ride the Lightning. It was written by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Kirk Hammett. It is also one of the many songs that is on the game Guitar Hero World Tour. It is on the Times Square venue right before BYOB by System of a Down. And this is one of I remember the first time I heard this when Metallica got big and everybody was going nuts. I was buying all my music on cassette, and I got this cassette, and I remember hearing Trapped Under Ice and thinking that this is maybe the fastest song I've ever heard, like fastest pop song I've ever heard. And every time I hear it now, I think, man, this is really a fast song. But technically they are a thrash band, and that's what thrash bands do. They play music really fast. Anyway, this is my Blackened Records repop of this that I think came out in 2016 or 17. Released by the band. The band got their whole catalog back, so they re-released everything under Blackened Records. And remastered for the first time, #1 thrash metal album of all time by Decibel Magazine. Metallica is just as if you would have told me like in 1980 that the Rolling Stones would be still touring and making new music, I would have thought you were nuts. If you'd told me in 1984 that these guys were going to be the biggest band in the world, I would have thought you were nuts too. But they are.
They really are. They could have 4 concerts at one venue and sell every one of them out, no problem.
And on the 72 Seasons tour that they're doing now, they're playing 2 nights in every city.
Oh, that's good.
They aren't repeating a song. So
wow.
They're playing a different set each night, and each night there's a different opening band.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's cool, but at the same time, what it costs to go to concerts now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a completist, if you're a regular like Metallica fan, someone who came along after the Black Album, you're probably going to the concert to hear Enter Sandman. Well, on this tour, if you're on that first night or second night and they don't play it, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, but I mean that's good when you're a band of that size. They can do that.
Yeah,
and they can play the music they want.
And the crazy thing about it really is the extra time that it takes to learn all. I mean, because they're having to learn like twice as many songs to go on tour. Most of the time, when a band does a huge tour like that, they've got a 15, 16, 18 song list of songs that they play, and they play that every night, and they don't stray from that set list. But these guys are playing a completely different set list each night. It's really kind of cool.
That is super cool.
I mean, to me, it says the band loves playing, and they love putting the work in to do that.
Yeah.
And like I said, according to this list that I just read earlier, they haven't played Trapped Under Ice since 2022.
Ooh, so you may hear that song if you go to the 72 Seasons.
Yeah, and I've always loved the cover of this record too. This record looks cool, like Cold.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it's got that blue kind of sheen to it and the reflective Metallica logo. And the hype sticker is rectangular, so it is
Approved.
But yeah, Trapped Under Ice, Ride the Lightning, kids, go get some thrash metal and turn it up really, really loud.
Nice.
What's your next
Well,
cool
let's stay
example?
as cold as ice with
Oh.
Foreigner. And this was,
recent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees.
yes.
Yeah.
And they even look cold on this album.
Yeah.
It looks like they're hanging out at the bus or the train station in the winter.
They got their bags packed.
And they all have their winter coats on.
Yeah. This is a band, and I've said it for a long time. This is a band along with like Boston, Journey. They kind of get lumped in and called corporate rock. But this band is so good. The music is so good. You know, I mean, you just can't deny how great they are. And they just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
As they should be.
Yeah. But Cold as Ice, sorry.
Cold as Ice. And this album came out in March of 77.
So right when punk was taking over.
Yeah.
Right when disco was kind of really taking over.
And classic rock was not falling out of favor, but it wasn't the king of the hill anymore.
Right. It's such an interesting like intersection of different types of popular music.
Yeah, and I've always liked Cold as Ice. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Foreigner fan,
Right.
but I love that song.
Yeah. I mean, to me, they are one of those bands that, like their first 4 albums, there is an enormous hit on each of them, at least. And like Foreigner 4 has like 3 hits on it. It's amazing that these bands could write that music once, let alone continue putting albums out with big hits like that. You know,
And Cold as Ice was the second single from this album. Lou Gramm and Mick Jones wrote the song, and it became one of their best-known songs in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and they were a kind of a hit-making team when those two guys got together. That's where the magic happened.
Yeah, and the song only peaked at number 6. I mean,
Really?
yeah, it wasn't like a number 1 hit.
It's kind of crazy nowadays with, you know, music being such a big part of sporting events. You hear all of this classic rock stuff at basketball games and at football games and baseball games. It's almost like, my wife and I talk about it a lot because we go to a lot of baseball games. I would prefer maybe a little less noise and music and sound effects at sporting events, but they're filled with them. And when there's not sound effects and things like that going on, they're playing music. And a lot of it's classic rock.
Do this.
Oh, do I have a bug?
No, you had just like a piece of
Huh.
lint.
Okay. I'm glad it wasn't a bug. Anyway, what else is on this one? Feels Like the First Time, Cold as Ice, Star Rider, Head Knocker, The Damage Is Done, Long, Long Way From Home, Woman, Oh Woman, At War with the World, Fool for You Anyway, and I Need You. Yeah.
The funny thing with the single Cold as Ice was it was a second shorter than the album cut.
Really? That's interesting.
There was the album version added an orchestra track.
No kidding. Huh. Okay. Well, there are those. Now we got something on the record. I don't know what's going on here. Record booger? Is that a thing? Yeah, Foreigner in its current makeup, the band that tours and play, there are no original members in that. Mick Jones is not in it. Lou Gramm is not in it. The guy that is actually like the musical director for the touring band is a guy named Jeff Pilson. He plays bass, but he was the bassist in the 80s band Dokken. And Kelly, the guy that sings, Kelly Hansen, I think is his name, he has been in a bunch of like 80s type bands. So Foreigner is one of those really interesting bands that is technically a tribute band because none of those guys played on the records and none of those guys are original members from the band Foreigner, which made, I guess, their induction at the Hall of Fame pretty interesting because Lou Gramm was there. Mick Jones couldn't make it. One of the dudes from the band passed away, and I think the other two guys didn't perform. It very weird, kind of a weird touring band. I remember when I used to work the Colts games, where we would like hang out, to watch the game in the press room. It was usually close to the room that they gave the band that was performing the national anthem. And I have seen Foreigner, that version of Foreigner, and I have also seen Cheap Trick just walking around in the hallways while I'm working at a Colts game. It's really, really odd to see those guys like out of their character. Yeah. Kind of strange. But yeah, Foreigner, man, they're all over the radio in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talk about that safety net that record labels had for bands, but these guys just took off right out of the bat.
They really did. This first album put a mark on the music industry.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one.
Cold as Ice, Foreigner.
That's one of the first songs I thought of, and then I flipped through my records and realized that I don't have that album. So, Valley Winter Song by Fountains of Wayne off of Welcome Interstate Managers. I know I've talked about this album here and there, but it's such a really, really great song. And I listen to these dudes and they always make me happy. You were talking about needing to get this.
Yeah.
This is one of those repops that it took so long for them to do, and it seemed like it came out and it was available for a second.
It was. Right. Was it a RSD release? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think they did an RSD release on this sometime in the last 7 or 8 years, but this is on red vinyl. And, of course, Stacy's Mom is the song that everybody thinks of when they think of Fountains of Wayne. But Valley Winter Song is one of the first ones that I thought of.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I've talked about it before, but the artwork on this is the album is Welcome Interstate Managers, and it's like this big round table of these rich dudes in tuxedos.
The Interstate Managers.
The Interstate Managers, and they're welcoming them. This album came out 2003, and the singles from this were Stacy's Mom, Mexican Wine, and Hey Julie. And, they began recording this album with no label support. And Adam Schlesinger, R.I.P., kind of the guy that wrote most of these songs, I guess he pretty much put his own money up to record this, and that worked out pretty well. Right?
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, but Fountains of Wayne are kind of in the vein of like I don't know what you would call it. I mean, it's not alternative rock. It's
kind of 90s power pop.
90s power pop is a great way to put it. And it's just, you can just listen to the whole thing. You don't even have to know the music.
Yeah.
You listen to this whole record and it'll make you smile.
It'll put a smile on your face.
Yeah. So Fountains of Wayne, Welcome Interstate Managers, Valley Winter Song, which,
Nice.
where is it on the, it's the first song on side 2. So, kids, I've talked about them before. Go get you some Fountains of Wayne. What's your next one?
Well, and this is another one that I thought of immediately when we did this. So we're not going to go into too much detail on this album, but Zeppelin 3, there's a song, the Immigrant Song.
I've never heard of it. Can you tell me a little about it?
And it's kind of funny because in the land of ice and snow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I think of that song, I always think of cold.
Yeah.
Just because of that line.
It makes you cold just thinking of the song. Oh, they've got this chants.
Yeah.
In the land of ice and snow.
It's like a Nordic, it's almost like a Nordic rallying cry song.
That's it.
Right?
That's it to a T.
And he's like screaming at such a high note on that song. I've always loved the artwork on this. I mean, we've talked about it before, but this has the flywheel so you can spin it.
Yeah.
And the cover changes. The different things pop out of we love die cut album
Die cut
artwork. It's very cool.
It's going that extra mile.
Yeah. And the extra expense that it costs.
Yes.
But the other crazy thing about this is that song starts this record off, and then the rest of it is almost like a folk album.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always been one of my favorite. I know we did a top 5, and if we did the top 5 today, it would be in a different order than it was when we recorded it last year. But yeah, I mean, they are such an eclectic band, right? They do music on I don't even know what you would call it. They do music on a scale from one end of the spectrum to the other,
And it's the song was written. This is critical to everything during their tour of Iceland.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. In the summer of 70.
You know how I always remember it though? That Greenland is icy and Iceland is green.
Well, but Iceland just sounds cold.
Yeah, and the Nordic stuff, and then you have like all of the Tolkien writings that he references in their lyrics. I mean, they were certainly kind of geeks, or he was definitely a geek.
Indeed.
I mean, he became the golden rock god, but kind of, he really dug all of the Lord of the Rings and all of that stuff. So, but no, that's a great one, man. I mean, when I was getting records ready yesterday and this morning, I was thinking about Zeppelin songs, and I didn't even think of that one.
Well, it's one of those songs, unless you know the song. Well, you know the song very well, but I mean, it's not in the song title.
Right. And it doesn't have to be, or the band name, or anything.
Yeah.
But there are those little hidden gems in pop songs and albums that, if you've listened to them enough, or you're enough of a fan of the band, you're going to come up with it. And, I'm a dork, and you're a dork. So it makes sense. That's a good one, man.
In the land of ice and snow.
Well, I'm going to go with, and I just got this. This just came to me about a month ago. This is Chris Isaak's Everybody Knows It's Christmas. And, we don't have to go into a lot of detail, but the way we were talking about Frank Sinatra, I love Chris Isaak's voice. And he has one of those like smooth as butter singing voices that lends itself to a song like Wicked Game. Or, he could sing Elvis songs and sound like he's making them his own. He could sing Roy Orbison songs the same way. But, this is just he and his band doing some Christmas classics. Winter Wonderland, Jingle Bell Rock, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Everyone Knows It's Christmas. I have not opened this yet, but this is going to get opened because when my wife and I open our gifts for Christmas, we always like to put Christmas music on.
Nice.
We aren't those folks that like the day after Halloween, we put Christmas music on. There are those folks too. There's a song on here, Dogs Love Christmas Too.
Of course they do.
Yeah, of course they do. And this is an expanded edition featuring 4 new holiday tracks from Chris Isaak on green swirl vinyl. This artwork reminds me of like Frosty the stop action Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I was thinking immediately. And isn't that kind of the elf on the shelf guy?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you've got Santa, you got a dog there, and this is actually on Sun Records.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I've talked about it before. Christmas music. I know I have more than I have in my mind, but I think I need to separate the Christmas music from the rest of the collection so that when I am looking for Christmas specific things, I can more easily find it. You know, do you have any stuff separated in your? No.
Only various and soundtracks.
Yeah.
But I've started kind of separating some stuff just because I need a country section because I'll forget. I don't have a lot of country albums, but I'm like, oh, wow, I had no idea I even had that.
Right. And that falls in line with kind of that inherited vinyl that we talk about. Maybe your parents had like a Hank Williams album or a, Mel Tillis or, some 70s country dude. Did your dad listen to records ever?
My parents had records because it was records and 8-track tapes. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
So he had to have some country.
They had country. My dad liked big band.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. But I had this under Isaac. I mean, I alphabetize everything by last name first. So, or if it's just a single name, we should do a show on how you organize your
Oh boy,
records.
That'll be controversial.
Yeah, it will be controversial. Chris Isaak, everybody knows it's Christmas. Obviously a Christmas themed album, but you know what? This baby's going to get played on Christmas Day this year.
That's good.
Yes.
Well, on Christmas Day, you would want to play a song from Shaved Fish by John Lennon, Happy Xmas. The war is over. And I like the fact that the song is called Happy Xmas.
Yeah.
I know some people get shudders over hearing Xmas.
Yeah.
I don't care.
People get real weird with like Happy Holidays as opposed to Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas. But I've always loved Xmas.
Yeah.
And I love this song. I mean, the Beatles were what they were. And it's just crazy to think that a John Lennon and Yoko Ono song is, when you think of a Christmas, when I think of a Christmas song, this is the one I always think of from the Beatles. And, and it's not from the Beatles, obviously, but it's just crazy how when you get into December, how you hear this song everywhere.
Well, and the funny thing is, it came out in 71, and Vietnam was still raging.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of a protest song.
Indeed. Absolutely.
But it's more looked at as a Christmas song by most people. It's so strange because I feel like over time, Christmas music has kind of come and gone. I mean, I feel like in the 70s, like mid to late 70s, like when John Denver first became really popular, I think of Christmas music being a lot more popular when I was a kid than it is now. But it's obviously still a thing because everybody puts Christmas music out every year. It's kind of crazy. I don't have any John Lennon solo albums. Isn't that crazy?
Well, and this one is a good one if you just want to, because some of the stuff with him and Yoko is pretty far out there.
Yeah.
While other stuff is really, really approachable for the general public. But this was a collection, so it had a bunch of stuff from their early career.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great one. I love the packaging on it with the fish. It kind of reminds me of the cracker.
Yeah, it's very much like that. They used the Harlem Community Choir in this single, and it was this was their Lennon's 7th single outside of the Beatles.
That's pretty crazy. In 1971.
In 71, yeah.
That's the other thing about the Beatles. It's almost like when the band ended, it's almost like somebody shot the gun off and they all just ran to their solo careers. And they were all, I mean, they've all put out a lot of stuff on their own.
Yeah.
You know, even in the short time between when the Beatles ended and when John was assassinated. I mean, he was pretty prolific, even though he took time off there to be a dad.
And it was a weird single because in the U.S. it was released December 1st of 71 and it was delayed in the U.K., which is weird because, you know, that's where the Beatles were from.
Yeah.
It didn't come out until almost a year later in November of 72.
Interesting.
And maybe it was because it was all about a protest.
Yeah. That could have had something to do with it.
And I know the BBC would do weird things with protest songs. They would ban them from airplay. And
yeah. But that's a good one, man. I mean, I love Last Christmas by Wham. And I love, you know, War Is Over by John and Yoko. And I love Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney. I mean, that's another one I love. These are songs that certain people, because you start hearing them this time of year and then it leads into Christmas, I think it drives people nuts sometimes.
I could be one of those people.
Yeah, but I love it. I mean, it when I hear this song, I think back to when I was a kid because I remember hearing it when I was a kid all the time.
It's that music time machine.
Right. I mean, you put it on and it just immediately, I'm 6 years old again.
Yeah.
So that's a good one, man.
Happy Christmas. The war is over.
How many do we have left? How many have we done?
We have one more. Well, you have two more left.
Oh, okay.
I have one more left.
Okay. Well, I wanted to point this one out. This is Weezer Seasons, and it's fortuitous that we were talking about EPs because Weezer put out SZNZ is a musical project by Weezer released throughout 2022. The project is a collection of 4 short studio records to be released on the first day of each seasonal solstice, with each having its own motif, aesthetic themes, and production style based on the corresponding season. And this is winter. I only have spring and winter. But when I heard that they were doing this, I was like all in because it's kind of cool. It's, you know, they're releasing them all in the same year when that season begins. And I, you know, Rivers Cuomo, he could rest on his laurels and just sing Buddy Holly for the rest of his career and make plenty of money and be just fine. And they are a prolific band. I mean, for a band that's been around 30 years this year, they just keep putting music out, man.
They put out a lot of music.
Yeah, and it's really kind of funny, a funny idea, but it's also something that you don't see bands doing anymore, like challenging themselves to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. I love themes like that.
Yeah, and the cover of all of these are all the same, but they change with whatever season it is. And so this is the winter season, and there's like a head from a statue that's covered in snow in the middle of the woods here.
That's even better that it's the same cover for all, depending on the season.
Yeah, and the hype sticker up here. And there's a song, I Want a Dog, Iambic Pentameter, Basketball, Sheraton Commander, Dark Enough to See the Stars, The One That Got Away, Why Don't You Get Me, The Deep and Dreamless Sleep. Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that they did an album called OK Human a couple of years ago. Did you ever listen to that? I know
No.
I've mentioned it. It's them with like a symphonic, full symphony. You got to listen to it. It's just so different. I mean, their music in that in that setting is really, really cool, and it definitely brings out some stuff in their catalog that you wouldn't recognize. But when this was announced, I thought it was really great, but it was really hard to find these. And only in the last year or so have I seen any of these seasons releases pop up. So when I do, I'll grab them. But I've only gotten 2, and there are 2 others.
You've got two to go.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And the single from Seasons Spring, hold on here.
Seasons Winter.
Yeah, let me bring that up. I thought that's what I brought up. This was released December 21st, 2022. And the single from this is I Want a Dog, December 9th, 2022. And yeah. This is considered stylistically similar to the works of Elliott Smith, featuring lots of loss and despair and kind of quiet. And Rivers Cuomo has also said that he had the thought that Winter sounds more like the original pre-Blue album Weezer than the Blue album does. And he said there hasn't been this much acoustic guitar and finger picking in Weezer since our first year together. So it's kind of cool for them to challenge themselves to kind of do a themed group of releases, but make that music that may be outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. But
That's a good one.
I love the artwork on it, and I just love the whole idea. These are the kinds of things that bands do that reel me in, and it doesn't even have to be your favorite music by them to listen to, but just the idea and them taking a chance like that. I really have to respect that.
That's a good chance.
So check out those Seasons records by Weezer. What's your last record, sir?
Well, as we're staying cold, let's talk about The Cure, and they've got a song, Cold, which in reality, it's probably not about the cold so much as like somebody looking at their body, and a soul looking at a dead body and realizing that it is better to be alive, but it's too late. So it's The Cure, so it's not going to be upbeat and happy.
I was going to say, way to end on a high note.
Yeah. And this came out on Pornography in '82. There weren't a bunch of singles from this album. The only one that was a single was The Hanging Garden. And this was when The Cure was becoming more popish and less... They still had kind of a goth feel, but their early work was a lot more gothic. Mm-hmm. And now they were kind of moving into more of a pop phase.
Right.
Well, alternative pop phase.
Alternative pop. They kind of created their own, what do you call it? Their own genre, almost.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of bands swimming in that pool at the time, but they really became more accepted.
Yeah, yeah. And even against maybe became more popular than he was comfortable with.
Oh, I think that goes without saying, for sure. I don't think Robert Smith really wanted to be a big name band guy.
Yeah.
But it just kind of happened.
Yeah. And I do respect him because he is one of the dudes in bands that are touring now that really wants to keep the price for people to come see the band at a reasonable level. I mean, he's railed against this, aftermarket ticket stuff, which basically it's funny because these third-party ticket retailers seem like they're independent and away from the bands, but most of the bands get a cut back from those.
Yeah.
So if the face value on a ticket's $50 and these retailers are selling stuff for 3 times that, usually the bands get a cut back from that overpriced and inflated ticket pricing. So I really feel like it's a problem that's going to have to correct itself, because I think in today's world, with as much as everything costs and as high as ticket prices are, I just don't see people being able to continue to go see bands live, you know?
Certainly not well-known bands.
Right. But he's been very outspoken against these crazy inflated ticket prices. So good for you, Robert. This has always been an interesting album cover, because it's actually just like a portrait of them, but it's blurred.
Yeah, it's blurred and all out of focus and wacky.
Yeah.
So, since this was the release that it was the brighter version of the band, more new wave.
More new wave, less goth.
Yes.
And more approachable.
Yeah, and it was their biggest selling album to date in
1982.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then honestly, they became like 10 times bigger than that after this album.
Yeah, the mid 80s, they were a well-known, they were getting radio play on stations.
Yeah.
Regular rock stations.
Not just college
right
type stations, that's kind of they were one of the like first crossover bands like that.
Yeah, and it was certainly an accomplishment for them at that time.
Right. And, most people don't talk about them like that.
No.
But it was a big deal for them, because he played for Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
Right?
He was the guitarist. Yeah.
So he, and then Susie actually became a little more popular.
Yeah.
Probably rode that wave.
Yeah, a
in the
lot
mid-80s.
of bands did in the 80s, because a lot of this stuff was popping up on like John Hughes soundtracks.
Yeah, and on MTV.
Yeah.
And Friday night videos and all of those different ways that people consumed music back in the 80s that don't exist anymore. I mean, I remember every Friday night watching Friday night videos, and usually the biggest songs were on every Friday night. So the songs that you started hearing on the radio all the time, you'd see those on Friday night videos, or go to MTV and see that stuff on a loop. It really is crazy how much of a different world the music industry is now, right?
So, yeah, that's The Cure, Cold.
I like it. That's a good one.
What's your final?
My final is The Season by, I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy. He used to sing for Journey. His name's Steve Perry. He's got one of the most beautiful natural voices in rock history. This is a Christmas album that he put out in 2021 on Fantasy Records. It debuted at number 6 on the Billboard Top Album Sales chart. And, this is just him interpreting a lot of classic Christmas songs, much in the way that we were talking about Sinatra and Chris Isaac before. Well, I mean, think of Steve Perry's voice singing those classic songs like the Christmas song, I'll Be Home for Christmas, Auld Lang Syne, Winter Wonderland, What Are You Doing New Year's Eve, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, Silver Bells, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. So I love Steve Perry. I love his voice. Obviously, I love him in Journey, and he has done some solo stuff. Street Talk was his first solo album with O'Sherry, and I think 1983 had all those hits on it. But then he just kind of disappeared for a time, and Journey disappeared for a time, and then they tried to reunite in 96, and that didn't work. And then he put another solo album out, and then he just popped up like 5 years ago and put a new solo album out, and he did this back in 2021, right in the middle of COVID, releasing a Christmas album. But I love Steve Perry's voice, and obviously he's in his early 70s now.
Yeah.
So he can't hit those notes like he used to do in the Journey songs and stuff. But it's a really good Christmas album. And I think I ended up getting it for like $11.
Oh, that's
two
even
or 3
better.
years
Yeah.
ago. So, like I said, I don't have a lot of that specifically Christmas stuff, but it's kind of cool to hear those voices that we heard as kids in popular music starting to turn that corner, like that crooner kind of album. You know, you never know. Maybe 15 years, 20 years from now, the Steve Perry the Season album will be like the Frank Sinatra album that you shared with us earlier.
And they re-release it. And
Yeah. There's a lot of very specific Christmas music that just I don't think we're able to think about it on the level that we are the rest of like popular music, because it's only for a certain amount of time. But one of the big ones that I always think of is the Bing Crosby and David Bowie, Little Drummer Boy. You know, it's like those kinds of things don't happen anymore. I mean,
No.
pop stars still put Christmas music out, but it's just not. It doesn't have that gravitas the way that it used to. Why is that?
there are no variety shows.
That's true. That's a great point.
That was a big thing on variety shows.
Yeah. I mean,
Now you just have talk shows and they perform.
right. Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I mean, it's been fun kind of going down this Christmas snow-filled lane
Yeah.
with you. We've never done a Christmas show.
No.
You've never worn a scarf all the way through a show.
Well, check that off the box.
We want to thank all of you guys for coming along. We want to remind you to go to our YouTube channel. Check out all the beautiful stuff that we have available for you there too. Why don't you share some of your favorite Christmas themed or snow themed or cold or ice themed songs or albums that you like to listen to this time of year. We also want to remind you to make sure you subscribe when you go to that YouTube channel. Make sure you communicate with us either through there or on our social medias. What else do we want people to do?
Comment.
Yes, talk to us. Start those conversations. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see us open, what kind of shows you want us to do. We're probably going to do another sort of Christmas-themed show this time next year that we were just discussing before the show. But we want to thank all of you guys for coming along. We want you to have a great Christmas. We want you to enjoy all of that time with your family. We especially want you to enjoy those gifts that might be records, because there really is nothing better. And I love it. My mom will do it for me, or my wife will do it for me. Inevitably, I'm going to get a record for Christmas. And it's one of my favorite things to open that and not know what it is.
That's fun.
And cross both fingers that I don't already have it. But we want you guys to have a good Christmas and be safe. Enjoy the time with your family and enjoy the time with your music. And we'll see you all the next time around.
It's a final adventure. Such a